Hello, everyone, and welcome to Read Matrix. Um, I'm gonna do a presentation on the Mesolimbic system. Okay, and this is my first time doing this format like this, so and I'm still learning how to work the equipment. So let me get some music here first. I get some music. All right, let me pause the music for that music introduction. Okay, so the Mesolimbic system here. And I have here also my queen with me. This is my buddy here, my colleague. She's a nurse practitioner and she's going to be working with me. It's a pleasure to work with you. Okay.
Likewise.
So thanks for joining me. So we're going to look at the mesolimbic pathway. Now, it's very important to sort of understand the mesolimbic pathway because this is the pathway that's primarily targeted in substance abuse, right? And so this is a pathway that's responsible for like the reward system. This pathway is primarily innervated by dopamine and dopaminergic neurons. And so let me read this here. And I just did a search for Mesolimbic, and so this is just the group, just the Google presentation here. The Mesolimbic pathway is a crucial neural circuit in the brain reward system, primarily involving dopaminergic neurons that project from the ventral tegmental area, the VTA, to the nucleus accumbens, amygdala, and the hippocampus. All right. Okay. This pathway is heavily implicated in motivation, reward, learning, and the experience of pleasure. Um, I was reading this one book. I forgot the name of it. And this one book was describing substance abuse as simply the mesolimbic pathway being hypoactive and the patient not enjoying the experience of having a hypoactive mesolimbic system, and they start to use things like cocaine and other substances that primarily makes the mesolimbic pathway more active. And so after they activate the mesolimbic pathway more by using amphetamines or cocaine, they basically eliminate a lot of those lower density states and lower consciousness states that makes them feel uncomfortable. And they exist at a higher consciousness state where they believe that everything is working well and that everything is coherent. So many times in the face of substance use, like with cocaine, they say they have to use it in order to feel normal. You know, so this reward pathway here is very important because people use it to modulate their experience of pleasure and things like that. Um, Here, okay, mesolimbic here, VTA, basically dopaminergic neurons. Okay, the pathway is crucial in the role of the brain's reward systems, motivations, reinforcement, and learning. Okay, here, let's see. So let me look at here. Let's look at the pathway here. That's too far. Okay. So here, from this area here on up here, and this is it. That's it. So let me see receptors profile. So let's look at the receptor profile for it. Okay. So on this mesolimbic pathway, okay, that connects from these different areas here. So we have D2 receptors here, D1 receptors. So we have dopamine receptors present. We have opioid receptors in these categories. And we also have other receptors here, muscarinic receptors and glutamate receptors. Um, you know, receptors here. Okay. Any questions so far? Any? Do we have anybody in the audience? Let me see. We have 7 people watching. Anybody in the chat? Okay, let me see. Let me see if anybody's in the chat. Okay, so Okay, wow. So basically, okay, well, we got a chat. Okay, great. Good to see you, Money's A. Okay, well, basically, is responsible for children reaction towards reinforcement. Yeah, I mean, reinforcement learning. Remember the addiction models, positive reinforcement, and stuff like that. So people learn to do certain things to sort of get the rewards from it, and that entire thing is mediated in this Mesolimbic system. And so here, um, okay, let's see. Okay, let's say Mesolimbic and cocaine. Let me try this. Let me try Google Scholar. And then let me see since it and cocaine. So let's look at the impact that cocaine has on this mesolimbic pathway. Neuroplasticity in mesolimbic dopamine system and cocaine. This will be interesting. Just to give you some heads up, cocaine shuts off learning. It shuts off, I think it shuts off the reinforcement or something like that. Um, let's see here. The main characteristics of cocaine addictions are compulsive drug use despite adverse consequences and high rates of relapse during periods of abstinence. Okay, the current popular hypothesis is that compulsive cocaine use and cocaine relapse is due to drug-induced neuroadaptations in the reward-related learning and memory processes caused by hypersensitivity to cocaine-associated cues. Whew, that's a lot to say in one word, in one sentence. Look, impulsive decision making and abnormal habit like learned behaviors that are insensitive to adverse consequences. I read a different study that sort of explained this. This is very complicated. The language is very complicated. Let me see if I can find something. Mesolimbic dopamine signaling and cocaine addiction. So this signaling, we want to see about the signaling. Let's see here. Okay, the chapter provides an overview, research topic. Consider cocaine related alterations in mesolimbic dopamine signaling to the escalation of cocaine intake and cue motivation. So let me see. Okay, I don't have access to this one. Do I? No, it's not on this one. I don't have access to that journal. Okay. Cocaine induced adaptations and metabolic inhibitory signals. Okay. Okay, the addictive properties of psychostimulants such as cocaine are rooted in their ability to activate the mesocortical limbic dopamine system. Um, this system consists primarily of dopaminergic projections rising from the VTA and projecting to the limbic and cortical brain regions, such as the nucleus accumbens and the prefrontal cortex. See, we talk about the prefrontal cortex a lot here. It's sort of like your seat where the abstract reasoning is located. While the basic anatomy and functional relevance of the mesocortical limbic dopamine system is relatively well established, a key challenge remaining in addiction research is to understand where and how molecular adaptations and corresponding changes in functions of this system facilitate a pathological desire to seek and take drugs. Yeah, so they want to see whether the underlying molecular changes that lead to the behavior of pathologically compulsively seeking drugs. Um, Several lines of evidence indicate that inhibitory signaling, okay, particularly signaling mediated by the by this G protein, plays a key role in the acute and persistent effects of drug abuse. So basically, inhibitory signaling changes in G proteins have a persistent effects on this. Okay, most recent evidence argues that these signaling pathways are targets of drug-induced adaptations. Wow. Okay, very interesting. Okay, in review of this, we discussed the inhibitory pathways involved in dopamine and inhibitory neurotransmitter GABA in the two brain regions. Wow, very interesting. So here is the study there. Now, um, it's important to understand this, at least this mesolimbic pathway exists. And if you can look at it, you can see the range of receptors, the receptors profile. So let me search for the receptor profile for atypical antipsychotics. Okay. Okay, I hope I didn't spell it wrong. Okay. So I want you to see the receptor profile here for atypical antipsychotics, not the typical ones like the older generations, the atypical ones, the newer ones. Um, and it's the same similar profiles. You see dopamine D1, D2 receptors. Remember the Mesolimbic also had D1 receptors. You had serotonin receptors. You know, the same thing, adrenergic, cholinergic, and some of these receptors. And so when we start seeing disturbances in the mesolimbic pathway, then we typically, in many cases, we can use atypical antipsychotics for those issues because the receptor profile seems to match a lot of the receptor profiles on that mesolimbic pathway. So whenever I have patients who, let's say, are using cocaine and start to have like symptoms of psychosis or things like that, and then I would reach for a atypical antipsychotic because I understand it's going to match have similar receptor profiles as the network that I'm trying to target. Okay, great. Let me see. I think I have a chat. Okay. And then I can see the comment. Okay. Okay. Someone said they have a question. How do you help someone who's not addicted to a substance but constantly chases approval and emotional highs? Wow. Marquina, you have a question? Okay, that's okay. How do you help someone who's not addicted to substances but constantly chase approval? They're addicted to the approval and the highs. It's the same issue. It's the same issue. They're using the people and the experiences to sort of maintain their ego and sort of maintain the balance in their lives and stuff. And so, luckily, fortunately, they have better coping mechanisms in the form of the people that they can use for these highs, as opposed to using the cocaine or some type of substance. So these are fortunate people to have people around them who would tolerate those things.
And
Uh,
that's where therapy comes into place too, different types of like psychotherapies.
like you recommend different type of psychotherapies for him?
Yeah, like yeah, because sometimes drugs can't, medications can't really help with that because it's something a little deeper. So that's what you need, like certain types of like psychotherapy, whether it's like psychodynamic therapy to like really find like the root and the cause of why they're seeking that emotional approval.
Yeah, and you know, the question here didn't seem like it was a question for medications anyway. It seemed like the
Mm.
person trying to deal with some complicated situation. Okay, yes. So let me see. Yes, the mesolimbic pathway. Okay, let me see. It says show. Okay, wow. The mesolimbic pathway plays an important role in neuroplasticity as well as neurogenesis. That has to be knee high. That has to be knee high. That has to be knee high. Okay, yep. Then hello,
Yeah.
Doc. Hey, Mohammed. Okay, Mohammed has a question. Okay, let me see here. Okay, how do you help someone who is not a? Okay, we have that one. Okay, thank you, Doc. Okay, best explanation. Okay, yeah. So if you guys had any other questions, please let us know. So um, when typically when we're seeing when the patients come in after cocaine use, usually the cocaine causes the release of the presynaptic dopamine from the presynaptic reset nerve. Um, it causes an increase in dopamine in intracellular space. This causes the mesocortical mesolimbic pathway to become hyperactive, and so the entire network becomes hyperactive. When the network becomes hyperactive, it can also cause symptoms that we would translate as psychoticism. So it may create delusions, distorted beliefs. It makes psychomotor agitation, restlessness, combativeness, all the perceptual disturbances, and all these things can come from a direct be directly influenced by overactivating that mesolimbic pathway. And so when we come in with patients with cocaine or amphetamine intoxication and things like that, they can have the symptoms consistent with a hyperactive mesolimbic pathway. And so we typically try to use the atypical antipsychotics in that case to try to help stabilize that pathway and bring down their symptoms. Does that make sense? Okay. Um, so I have another comment here. These kinds of sessions will be very helpful in the future. And I think what I'm going to do is maybe add some questions to it to try to. So I got the research journal in it. Okay, I got the AI to put the similar information. Then if I get some questions and stuff like that, then I think it'll be nice. Let me try and get some more images of the mesocortical mesolimbic pathway, so we can see it. Uh, and so let me try to, okay, images. Okay, look here. See if I can get this here. Yep, I think this is a good one here. All right. Okay, so let me mesolimbic here. Let me follow all the way here. Here's the VTA area here. And here it spreads here over here. I forgot this name, and also the prefrontal cortex here. And this is the target for cocaine and amphetamines and things like that. And the hyperactivity creates symptoms consistent with a psychoticism. And when this network is hypoactive, meaning during drug withdrawal, then you have all the symptoms of demotivation, decreased interest, decreased attention, decreased learning, and things like that. Um, there's this how it looks like there. Okay, is there any? I think I'm gonna go ahead and sort of end it for now. I didn't want these sessions to go too long, and it's been 18 minutes, and so hey, yeah, and so we got over at least down to 20 minutes. Okay, so if anyone had any other questions, please let me ask the questions right now so I can try to at least answer some of your questions. I've read that. Okay, yeah, I've read that sugar activates the same reward system as drugs. Is that true? This mesolimbic pathway, right? It's mesolimbic pathway. Yeah, the sugar, the increase, eventually causes the release of dopamine, basically, and it causes the pathway to become hyperactive. So sugar is also one of those other things. Caffeine, stimulants, things like that. Any other questions? So here, yeah, okay, okay. Let me see. Okay, here. What's the difference between motivation and addiction when both use dopamine? Um, Same thing. You know, um, we have a compulsion to breathe oxygen every time. If we don't, we'll die. So that's motivation. That's motivation right there. Um, this is the network that responsible for managing interest and motivation and all of these things within a human, and these are all like the substance, the molecules that target dopamine receptors can activate this whole process. Um, so, yep. Okay. Any other questions? If that's any other questions, I think
Can I
we're at.
can I add something to that?
Sure.
Also, like the main difference between like motivation and addiction is that with addiction, you're no longer satisfied by like just that whatever you're addicted to, you're not satisfied by that alone. Now you're looking forward to getting that so you can get whatever sensation that you need. But so it's like you're eager to like look for it now with the addiction, where it's like motivation, maybe you want to like work out or, something is driving you for that, where it's like now the addiction, you have to do it, you need to do it. You're anticipating that reward that you're getting from whatever you're addicted to.
Yeah, and then I actually think there's a huge difference because I think with addiction you still get the changes at the molecular level what we're talking about. See, but in the motivation, I mean, I think that's just your interest, what you're hoping for, what you're inspiring to be. Motivations are more like tomorrow, avoiding things like that. Where addiction is, modifications at the molecular level, and that's what we're looking at those
Right,
studies
right.
talking about. So yeah, so thanks for your input. Okay. Anything else before we end the stream? Is we're at 21 minutes. Okay. Otherwise, it's a pleasure, and we'll cover more topics later. Okay. I'll talk about. Thank you so much, buddy. I appreciate it. Take care, y'all.